we'll go ahead and get started. This is maximizing your office efficiency, and these are all additional modules. I just want to bring that up. It's not with the base transaction plus module. These are all add-on modules. These are our smaller modules, are not our base modules, but there are things that make it easy. With the exception of macros, I will be talking about macros because that is something I think people kind of underutilize, but that is part of your base transaction plus, as well as some importing and exporting can be. I guess that is additional modules too. I apologize, but I'll try to point out if it's part of your base product or if it's something you would have to add on. And sometimes I hate having to say, well, it's an add-on, it's an add-on, but we do that. I guess we'll preface that we do all these add-ons because some people don't need them, and we don't want you to pay for something you don't need. So we do have add-ons to make things easier if you need that or want that. But it's a way to keep our pricing down for our base modules is to add these as add-ons. But I don't want to mislead anybody in any of these options that we're going to be talking about. So the biggest thing that we do, and probably what I spend 75 to 80% of my days with, is helping people importing data from other sources. And this has really increased in the last 5 years, exponentially increased the amount of time I spend on importing data for everybody, because it just seems as technology improves and there's more people in the field of technology, there's just more places to pull your data from, and we want to help you with that and bring it all together for you within an FBS. And we're trying to streamline that and make it as efficient as possible. And so it's kind of a little case study, if you will, of hand entering versus importing something. We're going to say, because we know everybody's time is worth money and your employee's time is costing you money. So if you calculate on $10 an hour for your worker to, and if you are hand entering feed tickets, and say it takes you an hour a week, that costs you $520 annually to enter just feed tickets. But then because humans make mistakes, there's typos, it probably takes you another hour, half hour to hour a week, we'll say an hour a week, to edit and just run reports and just correct incorrect entries and to fix typing errors, which costs another $520 a year annually. So you're up to $1,040 annually for hand entering your feed tickets. The average time to import a feed ticket is a minute. So that costs you $8.32 a year to enter all your tickets for the year. There's no human data entry, so your quality of your data on your end is there's less to you won't have to edit anything. It should comes from your feed delivery vendor, and you go by their numbers and assuming they're correct, but it's not on your end if they're wrong. So it takes you a few minutes to review the reports just to make sure the transfer came across fine. So we'll say 5 minutes a week to review a report after you entered. There's $41.60 a year. So your total cost per year is under $50 of personal time, of employee time, hourly wages. So you're comparing about $50 to $1,000 a year for entering those same feed tickets. The initial cost of the import module for the feeding import module is $1,000. And annually it costs you about $200, more or less, depending on your support package. So around $1,200, $1,000 initially, $200 annually for that importing module. So the first year, your cost difference is $9.92. Your subsequent year is saving us $790. Plus you have additional 50 hours a year that you can have that employee working on something else. So I'm just saying, your time and money and the quality of your work all comes together in this when you're talking about importing versus hand entering something. And that's really the main reason people are going to more importing. So what can we import? We can import feed tickets, we can import your kill sheets, we can import payroll, we can import accounting transactions. For the most part, you can. You can't bring them in from sometimes it's harder to do it importing on accounting transactions, but there are some accounting transactions that are easier to import. And then we can also import your crop data. I'm not ready to go to this one. I'm going to go back to importing a little bit. When I say we can import some of your accounting data, it was asked previously, can we bring it in from your bank? And I said, we possibly could. You're talking about if you're bringing it in from your bank, you get an Excel sheet from your bank, your day's transactions or your week's transactions. You bring it over, open an Excel file on your computer. You have to add in the ledger accounts, the centers and divisions of FBS. And if it's, everything from the bank's gonna be one line. You might have to add multiple lines in to divide it where you want it to go. It can be really cumbersome to do that, so we don't have anybody doing that currently. But if you have a reoccurring entry, like an annual landlord payment that you make, it's always the same amount and everything like that, you can make a big spreadsheet for your landlord payment or your property tax payment. You might make a big spreadsheet for AP for property tax payments, and we can import that transaction. It might be easier to manipulate in Excel than it would be in FBS, and you could import something like that. Or yesterday I was working with a client. He had, it was some kind of crop program they had where they had to bill back this grant agency for what they were spending. So they created a report in FBS that showed every transaction that they could bill back to this grant foundation. They exported that into a template. We added a couple fields into the template and quickly created an AR in FBS with it. So there are situations where the importing into accounting works, and there's some that accounting and imports do not work. When we're talking about feed tickets, we have several feed mills that we have set import processes in place. But more and more, because the feed mill software companies don't tell us when they make a change. If you have that feed mill software and you notice a change, we can update ours to accommodate that change. But more and more, we're going to the format is called custom mapping format, where if you have anything in Excel, and it has to be one column for a date, one column for a location, one column for an ingredient, one column straight down. Everything in that column is a dollar amount and a weight. But as long as it's a clean spreadsheet, we can bring that in no matter what mill software it comes from. Our most complicated import is the packer import, because the packers change so often, because everybody has unique, even within the same packing company, it seems like other clients have individualized and unique attributes to their packer files, and that's probably my biggest headache is the packer files, because there's no way to simplify them like a feed import. And those just take a long time. There's so much data in a packer file compared to a feed import. But we try to work through that, and we're trying to figure out a way to streamline our packers to make it more customizable, like the feed one. And then the other, we're looking at importing on crop side. We do have an API with Conservice. We also import data from Trimble and AgLeader and a couple of those scale programs. But again, it's up to them to tell the individual user to tell us if something has changed in the software, because we don't communicate with those actual vendors. They don't tell us when they have updates to their software that might affect the import. But crop import is very similar to feed import, where we do have a custom mapping where as long as you can get an Excel format and get us the basic data, we can bring it in by you telling us what column everything's in. So feed and crop data imports are a lot of what I do on a daily basis, but they are getting more and more easy. It's just the packer ones that are still a thorn in my side most days, and probably a smaller percent of what we actually import, just because some packers still aren't even giving electronic packing information in Excel format. So, but these are some of the ones you look here. You come down our list here, everything that we can import from. So some of these are from like pig nose and some other pig files that I don't even come up with the names of them right now. Import from accountants is a QuickBooks payroll import option. A digital paper interface. There used to be handheld things for the pig barns that we could import the digital paper interface. Had like a pin, some kind of a pin thing you wrote with on the special screen. There's still some of those around, not a lot. Don't deal with those a lot. The import depreciation comes from Red Wing. That's an import relationship we have with Red Wing. They have a depreciation software that we can import from. I mentioned payroll. We have a direct import option through Red Wing Centerpoint Payroll. That is a click button import that's not listed here. But then we do import other payroll programs. Again, if you can get it in Excel format, then we can usually import it through the Transaction Plus import routine as well. Really cool.
Sarah, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
I didn't want to interrupt because you were on a roll there.
Go ahead.
So yeah, I didn't want to stop the knowledge flow there. So when you were talking about property taxes, so right now in QuickBooks, I pull up my last transaction. Obviously, the property taxes are never the same dollar amount every year.
Right.
So you were just saying that if you import in that, because those were your yearly expenses. So like, let's say you imported that in because that's your yearly expense. It still allows you, before you cut those checks, you can change those numbers yearly as you need to.
Yes, absolutely.
You're just saying it sets up it so that you have the platform for it. So you can just change the numbers per step to put all the county, the everything in it.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Absolutely. Yep. And I don't know if we have the one that does the big property tax import. I think they're in Ohio, and theirs is a formula thing that they just plug in some kind of formula and it calculates theirs for them every year, but in a spreadsheet. But you always have the option to edit the dollar amounts on any of those kinds of entries. Yep. Another way to do something like property taxes is a macro, an input macro, which is built into everybody's accounting system. Where again, it would save everything from ledger, account center, division, descriptions. You just change the dollar amounts as you go through. And I mentioned macros a little bit before, that they're great for entries you make quite often, so that it makes it makes it quicker. Or it's also good for those entries that you don't make very often, that you can't remember how you made it last time. And I'll just kind of go through how the input macros work. There's a couple different ways you can do them. So let's say there's actually, I'm trying to think something that makes sense here on this. I don't know who these people are, but we'll go with, I don't know, where's my good one? Say that you pay them $500 every month, and you break it down by farm overhead. This one, say it's always, then maybe you have this one is always to the center, and it's always $75, and it's just Gary's. And then maybe it's just a different center on this line, and it's the rest of it. So you have these different breakdowns by ledger, account, centers. Divisions are the same, descriptions are different, dollar amounts are different on every line. I'm going to save it as an entry as a macro, and when I save it, it's going to ask me to name it. I'm going to call it test. And then next time you go in to put in a check, it could be a check, deposit, any of them. I pick that vendor, and I can either click the button up here for select macros, and I pick the macro. I say again, multiple macros for every vendor. But I pick this one. If I click OK, it's going to fill it in exactly like it was last time I did it. But say this time, say these are in ratios. Like when some people like separate their utility bill as like 10% here, 10% here, 20% here. So it keeps the ratios, but I'm using the same macro, but say this year it's $1,000, or this month it's $1,000 instead of $500. So I type in my total amount over here. It's going to keep everything the same, but it's going to make each of my dollar amounts increase to hit the $1,000 in the same ratio the macro was saved in, if that makes sense. But I could always come here and change it. So say, well, yeah, it was supposed to be that kind of ratio, but actually he was $200 and this one was only $50 this time. So you can always come in and change anything about it, but it gives you your basic entry from the last time that you did it.
You can set multiple macros up for vending. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You can have tons of macro options there for that one. And you don't have to set them up like some people go through at the beginning of the year and set those up. And you can come here under setup and accounting and macros, and it lists all of your macros that you had. So here's the ones I had. And you can change them here. So I could change anything about this. I could change the name of it. I could change the vendor. I could change the dollar amount and just resave it. You can delete macros you're not using anymore, or you can add brand new ones. So this one, I'm gonna say it's for accounts payable. I'm gonna call this through. And you pick whatever it needs to be: land, rent, to farm overhead. You can save it and it comes up.
Now, I know you don't use the long descriptions like we do. If you were to put it, would it also save the long descriptions?
Yeah, they should. Mm-hmm. Now, the other thing that is kind of neat about macros is we do not have a way to say, I want this AP to recreate itself every month. We do not have that. But you can come through here and click on this accounting macro input. And so if you had several that are monthly, you could come through and you could say on 9/1, I want to pick this macro and this macro. It's going to date at 9/1, and it's going to put the exact dollar amounts and all the ledger accounts in for those two macros and create those entries really quick for you. So here's the two entries it created based on, give me a date in 9/1. It's that Cashman's test macro I had, same, everything about it down there. And then there's a secondary one, date of 9/1 that has all the bottom information saved. So you could go through and quickly, if you had a lot of monthly macros for entries, you can quickly go through and pick which ones you want to create every month and do them all at once, instead of having to go through and create an AP or a check for those every month. So it's a quick way of adding, and we don't have very many people who use this. I just found it last year that was even an option, so I don't know who knows it's even an option. But for some of those, like you have utility payments or you have grower payments or anything like that, if you had it set up as macro and it's the same dollar amount every time, it's a quick and easy way to go in and do it. Even on utilities, if it's not the exact same dollar amount, I have people who go in and put in the AP for the estimated dollar amount on the utility, so it's still on your cash requirement report. And then you can go edit, when you get the actual utility bill in front of you, you can go edit the dollar amount at it. But you still have an estimated cash requirement for however many months out on that utility bill. It's so cold all of a sudden. I'm sorry, I'm up here shivering. The other macro we have is called report macros, and you might have saw on this data set, I think earlier. There's not very many here, but there's a few here. Anything that has like the little dots in front of it, like this 943 monthly deposit report, is a report macro, and you can save any report you have ran as a macro. So, say every month you want to run a user-defined report on all of your income accounts for specific division. You can come and set your parameters of the report, and you run, and you check the box over here. It says save as new macro. You click OK, and you test. You name it. So monthly report. It runs the report. You have to hit the close button at the bottom. You can't hit the X in the top. You have to hit close. The next time you come into reports, you'll see that report called monthly report. And you click on it, and it's going to save all your parameters on the screen. It will also save, if you move any columns within the report, it will save that the columns as they're listed across. And so this is really helpful if you're trying to recreate the same report every month to hand to somebody. It's going to be consistent report. It's going to look the same every time you hand it to them. More professional looking and just easier to to read. They're used to the report. It's nothing new. Make sure you have the right information that they need every month on their report. So I do recommend running those report macros. And you can also always, to edit those, you can click on this setup report macro and come in here and edit anything that you need to edit, be date range, start here, or anything else on there. The other way you edit those report macros is when you you select the report macro and you click OK. You can choose update macro here, and then maybe you're changing the date. When you run the report again and you're done with it and close it, you have to close out the report screen so it resets the macros. But next time you come in here, that date will be updated for you.
So if you move the columns, when do you hit save for that?
If you want to save the, go back to this one really quick. So if I want to change columns, I would click on update macro. And when I run it, and I would move, say dollar amount clear over here, and hit close,
Okay.
it will save it then.
Okay.
Yeah. And if I come back in and run it, that amount should be clear over. There are some reports that do not save that columns, but it's very few anymore. I think we've got most of that fixed. It has to have got numbers in here to save the columns, so I've done it the first time. But if you have numbers in here and actually have a report, it will save that column sizing and order on most of the reports now. Again, makes running routine reports easier, as well as being more consistent, repeatable results on those reports. We've talked a little bit about scanner interface, and that's where we can connect the image to a transaction. And I don't have a scanner here today, so I can't really show how you attach it when you're putting them in, but there are two ways to do it, and it depends on how your office is set up. If you have a scanner at your desk, this is the easiest way to do it. You're putting in your entry, you hit toggle scanner. When you're done, you put your paper in your scanner and you hit save and scan, and you scan it and it links it up. And that's great, unless you don't have a scanner sitting at your desk.
And do you need a different scanner, or whatever scanner you have is sufficient?
Most scanners work. They have to be what's called Twain compatible, but your Canons, your Epsons, your Hewlett Packards are all Twain compatible. What it sometimes doesn't work with are those new scanners that try to scan it and it kind of tries to put your data in its own field. I don't know if it's called Scan Smarts or something like that. Anyway, those don't work as well unless you can turn that part of it off and it saves that. Usually those are saving as proprietary file types instead of a PDF. But if you have a scanner that will save it as a PDF, most of the time it will work.
Okay.
There's just some weird ones out there that don't. Fuji's work really well. Fuji scanners work really well. A lot of people have the really compact scanners that are single sheet feed.
Sure. I just want to make sure you didn't, just to ask the question if you'd have to buy if there's a special scanner for this stuff, but pretty much within reason.
Pretty much they all work. And you can do singles. It'll do multiple sheets, so you can on PDFs only, you can scan multiple pages and attach those to documents. So if you don't have a scanner right at your desk, though, there are still options to attach, and basically you scan those and you save them to a specific folder. And then there's two ways to do it. We tell the system what to look for, so I can say look for any PDFs in a certain folder and pull those in to link it, or you can name it in our naming convention, which is the 3 initials, a hyphen, 2 capital X's, a hyphen, and a 3-digit number. And so these all here are unlinked images. And I'm gonna have to make a quick check here or something to link this to because I don't think I have much saved. So then what this does on this scanning invoices is I can go to my fast link and pick whatever parameters I want to pull up entries that don't have a document link to it. You can narrow it down by date or vendor or type. I'm going to click everything. And it's going to show the first unlinked image over on the right. And this is just generic picture here, but then I would pick what entry I want to link it to. I highlight that line and click on link to current row, and it has linked it to that 312 entry of Verizon Wireless. It's going to bring up my next image that isn't linked. Again, I can scroll through until I find what I want to link that to, highlight the line, click to link to next row.
And then will you open that file and show how it shows them both, please?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
So I'm going to pull this up. You can pull this up from anywhere. You can pull up a report. You can see the linked image. So on this user-defined report, I see there's a column over here for scanned images. And I just find one that has a yes in it. Here's yes. So I can do it two ways. If I'm on this report only, I can right-click on the word yes, and it's going to bring me the image that is connected, which this is just a little box somewhere. I can't find where the image is. This one, of course.
That little FBS thing.
Yeah, it was on there somewhere, right? Or you can click, if you're clicking on any other report, and you right-click on it, there's going to be a little button down here in the bottom right that says display linked invoice.
Okay.
And it will show the image.
That little FBS sort of thing was there. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, that's nice.
And you can print it from here as well if you need to reprint that invoice. And that's from any report. If you pull up that check edit screen or AP or journal entry, you can have that button there to re-see that. I think I know we're working on the scanner interface right now to make it even better. One of the features we're trying to add is that if you needed to print out a bunch of invoices for a certain vendor that was attached, you could go through and pick all those entries and automatically print the PDF for it. Otherwise, going to try and print a bunch of PDFs can be a little time consuming, coming through and finding them all and reprinting them, but they're handy for there on your transactions to pull up and to show somebody what the invoice was for or what the
So you would attach the scan before you paid the invoice?
Yeah, you can do it. So some people put, it depends on how particular you are, they'll attach the invoice to the AP, and then when they write the check, they scan the check again and attach the check to the check, the printed check, or the check stub to the check. Or you could be like, maybe the statement gets attached to the AP, or the invoice gets attached somewhere. You know, there's different ways you could do it, depending on what information you have that goes with each of your entries. But yeah, usually they go, you would attach it to the accounts payable or accounts receivable.
So whenever you scan in invoices, like when you're not doing it as you go, how you were just doing it, is there a way to, it seems like there was a feature that I tried to use that it didn't work. Whenever you scan it in, is there like a fast link right there? Sorry.
No, you're fine. So it's not a fast link right there, but it is, I need to close this.
So like if you were to scan it, does something pop up to where it looks like you should be able to link it right then?
You can link it right here. So what happens is, let me get another, so if you have a entry open in the background, okay, and you come back to your scanner interface, you can either scan a new invoice and it will show up, or if you have an unlinked invoice here, I can click on display current invoice. So this is the screen it would look like if you would just scan something. It would look like this.
Yeah.
And you click on check for link,
Okay.
and it's going to look at anything that's open in the background.
Okay. So what I
it's,
need to do is have it open. in the
yeah,
background.
it says I have that Verizon One Day 312 open in the background. Should I link it? And I could choose yes.
Okay.
And then it doesn't. I'm missing a file. It should rename it, and you should be good to go.
Yeah. Okay.
And then yeah, your entry is still open here at the back, and it would have linked it to that. It's having problems because it doesn't like the out of balance on that entry, but you can do that. But you have to have the entry open in the background to do that. So you can. And it has to be saved. You can't just have it open and not save it yet. So some people try to enter a check and not hit save and do this, and that doesn't work either. So, and here's how you set your defaults. In the last week, I never had this come up before, except this last week I've had 2 phone calls on it. If you are using the scanning as you're entering, it doesn't ask you what you want to save it as. So you have to have this set, and I would recommend PDF. So save it here, and then you exit, and on your input, I don't have a scanner hooked up to it, so it's giving me all kinds of errors. It will save when you're on your input screen, your check input screen or anything like that. It will scan it and save it as a PDF. Well, clients this past week for some reason had theirs set to JPEG, and it was saving it as JPEGs instead of PDFs. JPEG doesn't work as well because you can't. Whatever is scanned on that image, it's all you see. You can't scroll from down or side to side, and it can only be one page. And so they were having problems viewing their scanned documents because they had saved them incorrectly when they were doing the fast scan, the toggle scanner here. So you do have to make sure that you have the correct file type saved on the scanner interface page over here to get that to work correctly there.
Do you know how the scanner works if you work in through 2 systems? Like we're on a Citrix system, and I can tell you right now it's not going to work for us.
Citrix environments are completely, if you had a network scanner on a regular network, it would be fine.
Okay.
But the Citrix is a whole different headache because it's a virtual machine thing. I don't understand.
Yeah, after I was like sitting here, I'm like, I don't think this is going to work.
No. What you can do is you can still bulk scan. So you have your scanner somewhere in your office or wherever it is. You save them to a specific file folder. We tell FBS to look at this path in this file folder, and then it will pull them in, and you do the fast linking. You could not probably do the scanning at entry.
And if she has if she has a scanner, fax, or printer in your office,
I have it like right by my computer screen, and that will make me no difference
because it's not going to probably read it right.
Systems.
before it can go.
Because the Citrix environments are really different. And on top of that, the security of the Citrix in a bank environment is even another hoop to jump through. And those are some of the limitations of as you're networking when you're talking about scanning from the entry screen.
You can just do old school like we do. Scan it into our little file, and we have our, like I was telling you before, it's old school.
So in
It takes
this,
a little longer, it's a few extra clicks, but you can get there.
so in this case, it would be best to have that scanner right on your computer, not through a virtual
It just-
environment.
I mean, in the Citrix one, if you had one hooked to your local only, it might work. I don't know for sure on the Citrix environment how that works, unfortunately.
Probably not.
Just
Because that's where we're set up. But like for anybody else.
for anybody else, it's better. I think it's faster to have it right here in front of you and scan it. Now, the one limitation I have, or you can always bring it up, I guess, like I said, and finding the entry and then clicking on view the attached PDF. But it saves it, so if I was going to come back and try to find a specific invoice that I saved to this company, it's all here in my data folder, and it gets backed up with your data. Everything's backed up. It's in this invoices folder, but they're just named, the ones that are linked have the 19 in the middle of them, so they're you can't, by looking at this name, you can't tell what it's an image of. I'd have to open it up and click it. So if you had to delete something, you'd have to go through and open up every image before you found the one you didn't want there anymore. It's a little cumbersome in that aspect. You can come here and say to can I display the current invoice, and it will display the current invoice that is here. be it linked or unlinked, and it tells you if it's not linked there. So, but it's very useful to have those scanned images there. I use it a lot on my personal farm books because I'll go to the farm office, I'll enter everything in, but my husband's never there when I'm doing data entry, so we come back home, he's looking at reports, he's like, I don't understand where this fertilizer came from. Well, I'm going to pull up the invoice from the co-op and say, well, this is what they said it went to, and this is why I have it assigned to this field. He can go, oh, they made a mistake, that should have been to this field, and he can see the invoice right there without having the paper copy in front of him. It makes it quick to fix errors that way.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So right now we can only do that in the Transaction Plus, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be nice if, like, whenever we close out groups in Smart Reader or whatever, if we could, scan, like our nursery sheet, for example, it's literally just one page, and like if we closed out that nursery, if we could just link it to that.
I completely agree. That would be nice. And we did start trying to do that, and it kind of got backburnered. I will tell you that have Scott bring it up to MASA.
Okay.
That would be a project that they would be interested in doing. I think I've heard a lot of other higher end those users of MASA that might clamp onto the idea too and get that pushed through faster than we would at the regular FPS level. But there is one, I say that there's nothing you can't attach. There is one other place you can attach documents, and that's for your VFDs. If you have livestock and VFDs, you can attach VFDs to groups. We put that in 2 years ago, I think. But it's similar. I mean, you scan it in and you attach it, but it's not through the scanner interface, but it's a VFD interface that you can use.
Sarah, can I ask one more question too? So when you were bringing up, like, let's say the farmer looks and says, oh yeah, that was supposed to be over here. So then you get, let's say you get rebilled on that. Mm-hmm. Or let's say you get an invoice, you scan it and you get rebilled on it. Mm-hmm. Can you scan more than one invoice then on that file so you can scan again? Or does it only save one invoice per the check?
You only attach one document. So when that happens, what I do is I combine my PDFs. So I find the PDF that has links to it.
Yep.
I find the additional copy or additional,
Gotcha.
and I combine them, merge those two PDFs,
and put it in
it's
there.
attached.
Okay.
And there's a bunch of, you can do that on the internet for free if you don't have the Adobe that does it. There's free PDF merging software out there. So from some hotkeys, and these are usually your function keys across the top of your keyboard, and that just make for quicker inputs and stuff like that. These hotkeys came up because a lot of 10 key data entry people are people who don't like to use the mouse, who are used to like 10 keys. Wants the functionality of the function keys so they aren't going between the mouse and the keyboard. And I'm just kind of highlighting the ones that I think people use the most. And so F10 on your keyboard is the same as scrolling down your mouse and clicking OK. So F10 equals OK. So if you have all your parameters in, you just hit F10 instead of having to move your mouse down. We talked about F11 when you're in a report. F11 sends the entire report to a clipboard so you can paste it into Excel. And anywhere in an entry screen where it asks for a dollar amount, you hit F4, okay, dollar or quantity, a number, I guess, on any entry screen. You hit F4 and it brings up a calculator. And you can do your calculations and you can hit enter, and it responds and puts that answer into the field you're in. If you're on your input screen and after you put in the vendor, you hit F8, it brings up your macro screen. F9 turns your vendor list on and off. Page up and page down, if you're doing an entry, you hit page up or page down and it moves your ledger counts down 10 at a time instead of scrolling everything. You could do page up or page down and it moves through your ledgers, centers, ledgers and centers will do that. Page up, page down also works on any report. If you want to scroll through the report, you can page up and page down instead of using your scroll.
And then control page up takes care of the bottom, or control page down. And
It does, yeah.
Control page up.
I forget about that because I don't use it very often. Not a hotkey, but most mice do have a scroll bar, and their scroll bar should work on most reports. Just pointing that out. That should work on most reports as well. A full list of all the hotkeys can be found up here under Help, and then FBS hotkeys. And it's broken down by reports and different kinds of entries. So if you're a person who likes hotkeys, you might scroll through there and see there might be something else that you would be helpful to you. I just kind of pick the ones that I use a lot. I find the most useful. And then this is the preferences, and everybody has preferences as well. And something to remember about preferences is they are saved by individual pre-initial company. So if you find a preference you like, you need to repeat it in all the companies. So you'd have the same preferences if you wanted that available in all your companies. Preferences are found under Setup. Utilities, Set Preferences. And some of these don't apply to, they don't always apply to everybody. They are broken down alphabetically. So AP and AR only apply if you have AP and AR entries, modules. So you can say if they're cleared or not cleared when you write the checks and deposits. The CAIV ones are for crop audit inventory valuation or crop audit eclipse. The CM are common ones, so those are ones that most people would have. But some of these don't work anymore. Email saved to account, email saved to home doesn't work. But you come down to report size and report to clipboard. These are some ones that do work for everybody. When you scroll down, you kind of land on a line. It brings a little box that kind of tells you what it does on most of them. So this report size, it changes the width and height for the report in pixels for different screen sizes. I don't know anybody who uses that, but the report to clipboard, again, it lets you hit F11 or F9 or F10 to put those to the clipboard. Trying to think. We use these scanner ones for the scanning functions. Like I said, if you have a bulk scanner and you save them to a specific file folder, I can put a scanner mask in here and it will pull them up without you having to rename them. Type of menu. This is talking about, there's different menu ones on here, so I gotta remember. Some of them hide the buttons up, the pictures at the top. Some of them hide the screen at the bottom. Some of them change from on the report screen here. I have mine in tabs. I have mine tabs like this. You can put a tree. So what I mean by tree is I think here has a tree. No, I like this. But you can change it to as a tree and it has plus and minus signs instead of the tabs for your reports. We talked about AP and AR. You have cash look back months. So cash look back months is 12. You can go up to 72 on it, but that looks for open APs and ARs back however many months you set it. Cleared look back months, the default I believe is 4. And that's on your checks and deposits. It looks for a cleared check or deposit back for 4 months. You can set it up to 12, which means that if you have a uncleared check out there and it's 9 months old, as long as you have your cleared look back months back 9 or 12 months, it will still report on it. If you're beyond, if that check is beyond that cash look back month or cleared look back month, it drops it off like it was a voided check. It's the highest you can go is 12 months because usually a bank will not cash a check over 12 months old. There's some one here for crops. You can set where your exports, if you've got the export button, you can set a destination where it always goes. You can set a default file name and file type, so you always know where the export goes and what it's going to be named. There's some input menu options here. Box up here for you. So it's like how many entries, like you have like the default is show last 10 entries on the input screen, but you can go up to 100 for the last 100 entries. You can set that on this one, on this line. And there's There's a couple other menu options there. A lot of these I have to look up sometimes. I don't know all of them, but some if you look through them and you have a question about it, you think it might help you, let me know and we'll try to figure out what the values are. Sometimes they're like secret handshakes that I have to go bribe my programmers about. They do. You can change your printer font size and your printer font, and set its default. It has to be a valid, like Arial or Times New Roman or whatever font you might have loaded on your computer. You can set that for what your printer always prints your reports as. We got some smart reader stuff here, some smart feeder preferences, some inventory evaluation for smart feeder. The bottom ones are TA Plus, which are their Transaction Plus. So these deal with all of the basic accounting program. Different kinds of balance sheets you can set up. Your check font size, you can change the font size. If you have different layouts you need for your check for each different farm, you can do that. Otherwise, they can all say they have the same check layout. When you print a check, it always brings up that screen for checking the address. If you don't want to do that every time, you can have it skip the address check screen so it doesn't pop up every time. You just put, it's a valid, that's, default is no, but if you put a yes in there, it won't bring that little address screen up for you. Here's a really, really good one. If you, it sets to yes. So right now, if you don't change this preference, if you have cleared a check or deposit, it lets you delete it. And this is one I had to put in about 5 years ago. If it's cleared, they should not be able to delete that entry. And you know, it's there. It means cleared and went through the bank. You can edit it, but you shouldn't be able to delete it. So I like to set this to know that you cannot delete a cleared entry. I just like that option a lot. It saved a lot of headaches and issues. If you have inadvertently installed the demo of AP and AR, this comes up a lot. They've done that. They don't have AP and AR. They don't want to demo it. They don't want to set it up. I can come here and disable that screen so it doesn't give you a little message that comes up if you've inadvertently installed that. You can have a default. Here you can set up a default account for all your checks and deposits. So if you're the default, you have several bank accounts and say you didn't want to renumber them, but it's the last checking account that you always use the most, you can have it set to default to that very last checking account or whatever checking account number you want instead of going to the first one on the list. Here entry is cleared. You can change that default. I think it defaults to yes. The default is for it to always clear it. So I usually come here and change this to no for everybody that's new. The 1099 paths are if you are, and your state ID is if you're doing that NELCO, you have to set these up so it knows where to save that file for you. Just some clear journal entry things here, printing checks, printing invoices. So this is where you can set that always defaults to print the check for you if you always print checks out of FBS. Just a couple other random ones down here. So if there's something you're like, well, I wish it did this, I wish it did that, make sure you check with me or look on this preference file. There could be a preference to make it work like you would like it to work, especially on entry or report parameters and stuff like that. So make sure you check out those preferences or ask me about those more in depth. It's just a different way to make the system work uniquely for you guys and more efficiently for you guys. I think that's really, we didn't really talk about ACH, but I can touch on that briefly. I didn't do much because they were doing it in the other track. What the ACH module does is that it creates a text file that you can send to your bank. So your bank has to approve it. Your bank has to accept them. They're called NACHA files. They're pretty standardized. But you send the file to the bank and upload it to the bank, and then instead of writing checks, it automatically goes to your bank system. Sometimes the bank bill pay is easier. Sometimes your bank bill pay will charge for bank bill pay. It doesn't charge for ACHs. So we do have that option of sending that over. The great thing about the ACH, or what everybody tells me is great about ACH, is if you're going to be gone on vacation, you have to send out payroll. You can go ahead and date that ACH file to send to your bank or post at your bank at a certain date, even if you're not in the office. And everybody says it's paid. We talked about this says intercompany. I wasn't going to talk about intercompany, but we do have an intercompany module, and what that does is it creates offsetting APs and ARs, which means that you have two companies, maybe they sell pigs back and forth or they sell feed back and forth. So you put an AP in one company and it creates an offsetting AR in the other company without you having to retype that whole entry in again. I think that's all. But really, the big thing is the importing, exporting, the scanning, and the macros are the big time savers for most people, though. Any questions? Okay. Looks like we have a break for lunch now, and that is over where we had lunch yesterday in Salon C, and then we start back up at 1 o'clock.